All right, so here we are again with Pattie Carroll, and we're going to get a little bit into the how-to of actually doing focus groups and some tips for doing focus groups. So thanks again, Pattie, for being with us. And my first question for you is, what's something you've learned about how to do focus groups better over the years? So for example, maybe earlier in your career, you did it, you learned some things, and then later on you had a even more improved way of doing it. What have you learned?
So earlier in my career, we were doing some focus groups around program improvement, having people try a program and bringing people in and getting some data around program improvement. And I think one of the rookie mistakes, and maybe not a mistake, but that data, what happened is we had a group of very different individuals. And so it was hard to really gather data. And what would have been, and what I've learned through years of experience and through mentorship from you and others at UW-Madison, what I learned is that it's best practices. I would think I could say that best practices to have more focus groups and more similar backgrounds of people. So maybe 5 to 6 or 6 to 7 focus groups with people of similar backgrounds, but having the 6 focus groups be of different categories. So for example, in my program improvement, if I would have had parents of 3 to 6 year olds and then parents of 6 to 7, or if I would have had mothers all letting me know how that program went for them, and then all grandparents letting me know how that program went for them, the data I would collect would tell a different story than having people from all different backgrounds. It was just harder to analyze the data when it was coming from different sources.
Yeah, in my experience too, like if you do one focus group with all sorts of different people in it, it can be really difficult to know, like, oh, was that just her perspective because it was the only mother in our group?
Right.
Or would some other, how would it have been different if there had been multiple mothers in the group?
Right.
So, yeah.
Was she an anomaly or an outlier, or was that what mothers feel?
Right. 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 And, it's not like we're trying to get a completely generalizable sample with the focus group. We're not saying like, oh, let's go add as many people as possible, so we can try to get a complete read on the population. But, we're still interested in, like you said, looking for themes. And if we really were just looking for one person's experience, we could do an interview or like a case study approach. So you're bringing up a really important point. And I think like anything, we can go too extreme with that. Like if we try to get complete homogeneous with the group, like you might end up getting kind of boring data. But
yeah, or even skewed in one area. Yeah, there are pitfalls to a lot of it, and part of it too is having a manageable size focus group, not having a focus group that's too big or too disparate. But also not too homogeneous. That is true. So there's that sweet spot of a focus group,
yes,
where you invite participants that maybe come from a similar background. And part of that, Jenna, I think with the similar background is also providing a safe and a place where people feel comfortable sharing, because in my experience, when you have disparate people who are very different, you might have 1 or 2 or even 3 people who don't feel comfortable sharing.
right.
So it defeats the purpose of a focus group, where one of the goals is to get multiple people and information from them. And you have to be very skilled at pulling that information. And what you want is safety. You want people to feel safe in that space to be able to share their true feelings about whatever topic
Yes.
you're researching. And it is my experience, I guess, that you can, part of that can be accomplished by bringing people who have similar backgrounds.
Yes. That
And
was so
I'll give you
beautifully
a
said.
concrete example. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'll give you a concrete example. So if you are your focus group and you have people who are struggling financially, and then you have just a couple of people who come in and maybe have a perception of being more affluent, it might be really difficult to get really good, strong data that reflects the real feelings of people attending that focus group.
Yeah.
I hope I'm making
Yep.
sense.
You are. It's so beautifully said. That's so important, and very, very good wisdom to share. Seriously. I mean, it's a lot of time and effort, right? I mean, to bring people together and to respect our participants. Part of that is like actually giving them the space and the comfort, or setting it up in a way that they will be able to share their perspectives. So Pattie, you're obviously familiar with the extension context. A lot of people that work for extension are very busy outreach professionals with lots of different things on their plate. Do you have any tips that you could share for folks that, they're not like professional evaluators. They don't have like their whole job set aside to be designing and implementing these methods. How can focus groups be a doable method for extension colleagues?
That's a great question. And I think that part of being an extension educator and part of the land-grant university around the country, where we are all engaged in community outreach and engagement, the niche that extension educators have is relationship building within the communities we work, we program in, we educate, we coalesce communities together. And so in extension, we have a niche. We build relationships. In extension, my peers around the country are conveners. If I don't know the right people or how to bring together a focus group or who I need for a focus group, maybe my local human social services may have a list of people. Maybe my local ADRC, depending on the programming. Maybe my local 4-H club or my I'm trying to think of agriculture clubs or organizations. But we know how to reach people and bring people together. That is one thing in extension we are really good at. And if you think about how can you make it simple, it's important to remember that a focus group should not be scary, but you should also always have more than one person working with you on a focus group. You definitely need a scribe. You need to be consistent in how you ask questions. You need to have a plan of asking follow-up questions if something is really interesting or you want to pull that thread a little bit. And it's a matter of really thinking about bringing people together and asking the appropriate questions, doing your due diligence, really organizing it in a way that makes it seamless and that make people, I said it before, and I don't know if it was this segment or a different one, but we need to provide safe environments for people to express their true feelings about the data that we're trying to collect or the information that we're trying to collect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is rely on your network and other organizations if you feel like you need help, either pulling together participants or even for those support roles in actually managing the focus group itself.
Yeah. And I know from my own experience at UW Division of Extension that there are internal resources that extension educators can rely on. But I'm thinking about anybody who is interested in pulling together a focus group, or multiple, because best practices would say one focus group might not give you all of the data you need. You might want to consider at least 5 or 6 separate focus groups to actually have a good collection of data. But that it is possible and it's feasible, but you have to be organized. You have to have your questions. You have to have somebody to help scribe the information and or record the information. You have to treat people with respect and offer them a safe environment to participate.
Yeah. And with the more people on your team, the more possible it becomes to do that larger effort of data collection. I think if you have a smaller group working on it, it is okay to do 1 or 2 focus groups and just see it as a developmental effort. Like, see it as, this is what we've learned now. These are the questions we still have. And maybe next year you have a chance to build on that by adding in another focus group. Don't let the idea of like, oh, I should do 5 or 6 prevent you from starting somewhere, and
absolutely. And especially if you are a local county educator and perhaps you're thinking about implementing a new program, and you don't know if you should actually put the time and effort. Pulling together a focus group to find out if that might be a direction. In those cases, 1 or 2 focus groups is more than sufficient. Or like I said, earlier in my career, when we were looking at program improvement, 1 or 2 focus groups to help inform the direction, or to make tweaks on, curriculum development and design. There are appropriate times to have a smaller data set. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Pattie, for giving us tips for how to do a focus group. Really appreciate it.
You are welcome.